Hi, welcome back to the workshop for episode 44 of the Great Guitar Build Off 2022 build. And in this episode, we're taking a giant step towards completion by getting the lacquer we put on about a week ago polished up as best we can. Okay, so it's time to get this sanded down and buffed up to a nice glossy finish. It hasn't really had long enough to cure, but we are where we are and we need to get this one finished. So I'm going to give it a quick buff up, and at some point in the future when it's time for the guitar to be set up, once it's settled in, I'll get all the hardware off and I'll just rebuff the top and the headstock. But I'm pretty sure we can get a nice shine on it for the time being. Now I'm going to do things slightly differently again on this build. I changed my routine a little while ago. Previously I would have wet sanded the whole thing with wet and dry on a little, basically it's a rubber and a razor, and I would have wet flatted that and then wet polished it to a beautiful lustrous shine. The problem we have with that is introducing a lot of water, especially where there's holes drilled into the top, etc., kind of can make the wood swell a little bit, and occasionally you'll get a crack radiating from there. Personally, I kind of like checked lacquer and like an aged look to a guitar, so it's not a massive problem, but it's not really where we want to be on a brand new build. So I changed things up a little while ago and I moved to these Super Acilex sanding sheets on a soft foam pad, and I flatted it all off with those, and then I moved to 3000 and 6000 3M Trizac pads, and from there just did a little bit of a polishing job, which was great. If I'm honest, it's not as good as the machine polishing finish. So what I'm going to do this time is a little bit of a hybrid of the two. So I'm going to start off with some Super Acilex on the block to get us a nice flat smooth finish. Then I'll work my way through the grits of the Super Acilex, probably then moving back to this softer pad onto the Trizac, and then I'm going to do some polishing, but I'm going to do the polishing probably by hand, not machine polishing, and I'm hoping that I can get it somewhere near a suitable finish that way. It might well be the case that we actually have to resort to dry machine polishing, but we'll see how we go. So to start off with, I'm just going to take a piece of this 600 Super Acilex on the rubber and just start working my way around. Now you probably can't see in any of these shots because it is very, very fine detail, but the finish on this isn't actually that bad. If anything, all there is this tiniest little bit of sinkage back into the grain of the maple, which is very fine, so it's not really that deep, which is great. The addition of the spray booth to the workshop has completely changed the game as far as this finish is concerned. Previously, I'd spray something and I'd get a lot of overspray into the atmosphere, and that would get drawn onto the wet finish on the guitar, and it would dull the finish right off and kind of leave a textured feel to it. That then has to be flatted right out before you can start to polish, and that is a lot of sanding. With the new booth, all of that overspray is pulled out of the workshop almost immediately, and none of it is drawn back onto the finish, so this is a lot flatter, a lot smoother and a lot glossier to start with than I've ever had before. So theoretically this should be quite a quick process. And that's most of this area flatted already, and you can see when you catch it in the light that there's all those little shiny spots where it's sunk back into the grain have been removed, and that's all nice and flat. So I'm just going to do this little area here around the edge of the body with the foam pad. Because of the curve there, I don't really want to use the rubber because that's potentially going to make it easier to rub through. So we'll go with the little soft hand pad there and just get that bit rubbed in. So now that we've established that smooth base to work from, I'm going to switch up to some 800 super acylics and just use that on the soft pad, and then just progress as normal until we've worked our way through all the grades and we're ready for some polish. And once you've established that base level, you really don't need much rubbing at all. It's literally just a case of removing the scratches from one grade of paper and replacing them with a finer set of scratches. And then it's onto the 3000 Trizact pad. But for this one, I am going to use a tiny little bit of water just as a lubricant, but we're not going to use much. Okay, I think as you can see there, you can get the light in it. That's come out beautifully. So I think what we'll do now is cut away to a polishing montage, and I'll join you back in a little while. Okay, so that's the top done. Very pleased with that, to say that I haven't used the power mop on it. It's come up very, very nice. And that will absolutely do for the time being until we get to the point where we need to do it properly. So with that done, time to switch the guitar around and very quickly do the same process on the headstock, and we'll be good to go. And there we have the finished article, and I've got to say I am really happy with that. It's come out beautifully, and now that we've got that gloss on the body, I really do think that my decision to go purple was the right one. I think that works really well with the Zebrano fretboard, so very happy with that outcome. So with the polishing done and looking super, there's only really one thing left to do, and that's to start putting this thing together, which hopefully shouldn't take too long, but I'm going to address that in the next episode. So until then, hit that like button if you've enjoyed this, subscribe, etc. and I'll look forward to seeing you in a couple of days' time. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye bye.